Hello, everyone. Welcome to Photos and Their Stories. Today I'm talking to a very special guest, Joel Robison. He is a conceptual photographer, and we're going to be talking about some of his favorite photographs and their stories. Hi, Joel. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Very happy to have you here, and you have your gallery open here, so
I
I
do.
wanted the guests to I wanted the guests to get a little glimpse into your work if they are not already familiar with it. And even if they're familiar with it, I think it's a good reminder of how magical your work is. So please feel free to scroll through your amazing
Well,
pictures.
thanks. Here's just a little gallery of some of my more recent favorites, I guess, from the last few years. As you can see, it's a lot of self-portraits. It's actually all self-portraits.
Mhm.
But I like to create sort of imaginative scenes that are sort of out of a storybook or out of like at least a story. I want each image to be a standalone kind of storytelling image. So a lot of the pieces are based off of kind of ideas that I've had based around my emotions or experiences or things that I'm thinking about, and trying to find a way to connect them um, into an image that says a lot to me, but might also connect to someone else.
Yeah, I think that's the power of storytelling. If you tell a story that is personal to you, it's very likely that somebody will be able to relate to it,
Yeah,
especially if you do it
absolutely.
visually.
Absolutely. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of the last maybe 8 years or so. There's a bunch of my favorites from the last seven or 8 years, I guess,
Yeah,
tucked
yeah,
away in this gallery.
I'm recognizing some of these photos from the Flickr days, like the one with the
Yeah.
feather on the back.
Yeah.
That's very Flickr.
As I
Uh,
go back, it's definitely hitting like the Flickr era.
Flickr era. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I love these. All such good, high quality pictures with meaning.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that about your work. And I really look forward to seeing your favorite photographs and how you took them and why you picked them. It's definitely an exciting journey that we'll be on.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, this one I came up with a couple of years ago. It was, I think it was 2019. It was kind of around May, and I don't know if you remember or if you were aware, but Instagram used to have this sort of weekend hashtag project.
Hmm.
So every weekend, Instagram used to have sort of this hashtag that they would invite people to create with, and they would feature some of the photos that were shared over the weekend on their account. And I found it to be a really wonderful way to connect people. And the photos that they shared were not necessarily from the biggest accounts, or they might not have been like the, I guess, quote, best photos, but they were ones that really captured the theme. And it really connected a lot of people. And I used to see tons of the people that I followed playing along and joining. And it had that element of like you said, Flickr, where people were kind of creating together, where it was a really united thing. Every weekend you'd kind of wait until Friday to see what the theme was, and then you'd spend the weekend creating. And it was really a fun way to kind of, it was like stop, drop, and create, because you really had only a couple of days to create something. And all of a sudden, without any warning or without any notice, they just stopped doing it. And kind of just didn't show up one weekend, and everyone was like, well, maybe it was just like something happened. And then the next weekend it didn't come back, and then by the third weekend people were sort of talking about like, where did it go? Like, I wonder if it's coming back. And we kind of just
Hmm.
realized it wasn't coming back.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to kind of create an image that talked about connection, and sort of how connection through creativity is so important to me, and how I've always felt a part of the creative community, and how photography has really connected me to myself and to others. And so I started to come up with this idea of like me holding this camera, and then obviously these sort of instant film pictures sort of all linking together, and how I'm a part of it all, kind of all linked together, almost like a never-ending circle. So as the images go, it's sort of interlocking and interlapping with each other. And then I decided to start my own sort of hashtag project with some creative friends on Instagram. So a group of us got together. I think there was about 16 of us, and we just decided, you know what, each week we will just come up with a theme for ourselves, and we will present it to the community and see how it goes. And it was a really great way to kind of keep that theme going. And so this was the first image that was based off of that idea, this sort of creative hashtag project. And it was just a way for us to keep that community going. And this image was really inspired by that idea of community and connection.
That is really nice. And I love that you took Instagram's project, which unfortunately didn't continue going on
Mhm.
for years, and you turned it into something of your own and you were able to include others in it. That's really nice and, very uplifting.
Yeah, I think it was just a chance for us to kind of see how we could take things into our own hands and realize like, okay, if Instagram isn't going to give us this opportunity, we can just create it for ourselves. And so I liked that. I liked that there were people that were as passionate about it as I was. It really made me feel like there was still community in social media.
I like that very much too. And would you ever consider doing something similar again on Instagram or anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, I run a creative group on Facebook and on Instagram, and it started about 3 years ago called the Light Bulb Project. And it's based around that same premise. It started with like weekly themes, and every week I would post the theme, and people would just create, and there was no obligation. You could create as you wanted to or as you felt inspired. And we finished the third year of it actually. Just last week we finished the third year, and we've moved now. The next project will be a monthly theme, so every month there'll be a new theme. But I always like the kind of community aspect of creating and social media. I think they go well together. And I think that when you're a part of the creative community, there's always inspiration. There's always people that understand what you're trying to do. And there's always someone around that you can talk to. And I think that that's really one of the best parts about sharing your work online.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's a very healthy way to approach social media as opposed to just sharing things and feeling insecure. I think if you connect
Absolutely.
with people, yeah, if you have a purpose to it that is beyond you in a way and connects you with other people, it's definitely very healthy and inspiring.
For sure.
hmm And you told me you have the PSD files for all your
I,
photographs, which is
I do. Yeah.
yeah, it's a really nice touch. So thank you for sharing that with us.
So this is it's not color corrected because I tend to do my color correction in Lightroom, but it's actually embarrassingly simple.
Oh,
This is sort of the before with
oh,
some
okay.
shadows, the shadows that I foolishly painted right onto the base image. But yeah, I just took an image and I shot it straight down over top of it's like a picnic table. And I really like to create scenes when I'm creating images. So I like to have little details or little,
Mhm,
layers of interest so that you're more immersed in the photo. I tried a few different options, one where there was nothing around, one where there was just flowers, one where there was just cameras. And I like the textures of having all of it. I like the little bits of color from the flowers, and I liked the different focus layers that existed when I added in these cameras.
mhm,
So I spent a bit of time just sort of building that up and then kind of moving the photos around so that it would fit kind of the body position that I wanted to have. And then I can turn that off. So just laid on the grass, and I wish I had a photo of what my camera setup looked like because it was very dangerous. It was
Oh,
kind of rigged together like with a rope and leaning kind of off the edge of this picnic table. And I mean, I kind of put my gear through the paces, so it definitely was a tense few moments, but luckily I got what I needed pretty quickly, and then it was just a matter of masking, and so a lot of this image just came from just masking things out. So
mm,
knowing that I wanted, my hand to come out of one and into the other, so that meant that I would just leave that bit there, and the same down here. It was just a matter of figuring out where to draw the layer mask, and where to leave the image. And then it just was adding in some shadows. And I think that anytime that you add shadows, it's automatically going to help any sort of composite look
mm,
more realistic. As soon as you start to add in some shadow effects, it really just helps to tie it all in together. And I found that it wasn't that difficult to kind of make it all fit together.
mhm. Wow, that is a really simple approach, as you said, but you use that simplicity to your advantage
It's a
and
very
made it
simple
easy stuff.
simple edit, yeah. And
Yeah,
then obviously in color correction, I just boosted those color tones and made it a bit
yeah.
more saturated, and that was it.
Really nice. That's
Simple.
so cool. Very cool to see the behind the scenes and the fact that you had this camera rig going on that was a bit dangerous. So it's also nice to know. I love details like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. I can show you another one as well.
Yes.
It's sort of a similar top-down approach. So this is one that I shot last year, and it was for that project that I was just telling you about, the
Mhm.
light bulb project. And the second theme of the project last year was the word emerge,
Hmm.
and it's sort of a very interesting word. And I like that the themes weren't chosen by me, they were chosen by the community and put into like a randomizer and pulled at random. And
Hmm.
so I didn't have a lot of time to like pre-think of things. So when the word emerge came out, I really was stuck for an idea. And then I started to think about like, okay, emerging is sort of like when you're just sort of coming to being and you're kind of developing yourself. And I kind of came up with the idea of like drawing yourself into
Yeah.
reality or like creating yourself into reality. And so I just created this image, and it was pretty much taken in the same way as the other one, just shot top
Hmm.
down. Again, using kind of the pencils and the coffee mug just to add layers and just to add a little bit of sort of environment, because I think without it, it just becomes a bit plain. And I think when you add in those little bits of extras, it starts to look more like an actual scene that you might be coming across.
Yeah.
Um, and I can open the
Hmm.
PSD for this one as well. And again, it's it's very quite simple. If I turn everything off, we just have the basic picture,
Hmm.
and then, oops, and then we have sort of the top down. Um, this was taken outside in the
Yeah.
snow. Again, camera kind of precariously dangling over a railing, but this time it was tied up so it wasn't going to fall. And then just kind of shooting different angles and different perspectives, just trying to make sure that it looked right. And my camera, uh, my phone is actually the remote, so I'm kind of looking down, trying to make sure that everything looks good.
Yeah.
But then it was really quite simple to put it all together. So I just, again, a lot of my work is in masking, so just layer masking.
Hmm.
And then I created a pencil brush, so a brush that mimics the kind of texture and tone of a pencil. And I just drew over the existing shape of my feet and my legs, and then just sort of blended that away using a layer mask. And then again, it was just adding in my hand again, adding in some shadows,
Yeah.
and just playing with the shadows and just adding in some texture of like erasing
Yeah.
and just playing with the overall effect. And then eventually we end up with this once we get some more shadows and some contrast in there. So again, it doesn't take a lot. It's really just two images put together, but it's just how creatively you put those two images together. And and yeah, I think, like I said before, once you start adding shadows in, once you start playing with the way that things interact with each other, it helps make it look a lot more realistic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is definitely very plain if you just photograph something a very specific way. But if you add, as you said, details and textures, and I love that there were, the eraser marks there under the illustration. I love that. I thought that that was already there with the notebook, but you added that in later.
No,
That's
I added them in later. Yeah.
that's a nice touch, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that when I watch TV shows that I really like, especially period dramas, I like to watch behind the scenes of those, and oftentimes these things are usually overlooked, but they still add so much to a show. Those people who are in charge of creating, set designers, they have
Yeah.
to make something look a specific way as if it's been lived in. And I think
Yeah.
photographers have that magical ability too to make something have, be enriched with an atmosphere that is specific to the theme. They
Definitely.
do
I
that
think
very well.
that my work, I've always wanted it to look like almost like if you looked at the right time, that it might actually be happening in real life. And so I think that's why I always try to make my images look, they're kind of whimsical and they're kind of imaginative, but they're also very much in a real place at a real time. And it's almost just like if you happen to be paying attention, you would see this happening.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I like that. And in our podcast in our episode for Great Big Photography World, you mentioned that you were into illustration, right? At some
Hmm.
point.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember seeing the self-portrait on Instagram and thinking, right, this is his creative illustration side coming out.
Yeah, I still try to develop ideas, and when I have time, I sit down and I sketch things out and I try to come up with ideas. But I don't have as much time or energy um, to dedicate to it as much as I would like to. But it's fun to be able to kind of mix and match. And actually, this Connect one, someone painted a really amazing painting of this image once,
Yeah.
and it was just awesome. I find that that's so cool when you kind of when people feel inspired enough to take something you've done and create from it. And this image here has been sort of adopted, and people have tried it out themselves. And I think that that's really cool too, to be able to see, people feel inspired. They're not necessarily copying you picture for picture or, making it completely the same, but they're taking that idea and they're trying to find their way with it. And I think that that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's very flattering too.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Here's another one that was created last year. So again, like I like to kind of build perspective and build atmosphere. And one way that I try to do that is using really soft depth of field. So I tend to shoot with like a wide open aperture, so around 1.4 or 1.8. And that way the foreground and the background are really nice and soft. And so in this case, this field just had really nice tall grass. Shooting in grassy fields is like my favorite place to be.
Hmm.
And so this was a case of like, okay, there's a really cool grassy field, and I'm going to create from it. And there's this song that I've listened to for years and years and years, and it always reminds me of autumn. And there's a line in the song that says like, "When the seasons change again, I'll change too." And it sort of always hits me like, especially in drastic changes of the seasons where I live in the mountains. When autumn hits, it hits, and it's like everything changes so drastically from when it was the summertime. And so there's tons of different colors, there's tons of different um, of textures, and it just changes so drastically. And I wanted to capture that in an image of just sort of that I am part of the natural world, and that I kind of change my own personality, or I change my own sense of self as I grow and as I age and as I mature and as I go through all these seasons. I'm kind of changing a little bit too. And so I created this image based off of that idea, and adding in those leaves kind of on the edges kind of gives you that more immersive feeling, as if they are floating towards you.
Yes, absolutely. And you're sort of in the scene yourself as the viewer. I like that. And I
Definitely.
like that you got inspiration from a lyric. That's something that a lot of people can relate to. And it's always nice to be able to use different forms of art in your own photography as inspiration.
Definitely. And I think, you know, I used to base my work around a lot more kind of other forms of art. So whether it was stories or whether it was songs or books. And I've found that more so lately I've been kind of relying more on my own creativity. But it is still nice to kind of hear a song and feel really connected to it and really want to create from it, or read a book and feel really inspired by it. And I think, like I said before, that's the joy of creativity, is that you might see something or read something or hear something and have just that little bit of spark that you have to do something with it.
Hmm. Yeah. And was relying on your own creative ideas a conscious decision, or was it something you naturally flowed into?
I think a bit of both. Like I think I wanted to really push myself to rely less on things that already existed, and really kind of build my own skill set, and not rely so much on things that other people have had a part in. I think it's always fun to be able to create based off of like your favorite stories or your favorite characters or your favorite kind of genres of things. But I also think it's really a chance for you to explore your own ideas and your own sense of self when you rely more on your own ideas and your own kind of visions of how you see and feel about the world.
Oh, it's a very interesting perspective. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So this is the PSD of this one. So you can see this is a lot of color color adjustments. But
Yeah.
if we scroll all the way down to the bottom,
Oh, wow.
let me see. This was a lot of layers, mostly because it was a lot of leaves that I had to add in.
Yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
and I didn't actually keep the portrait. This has already been edited, but essentially the image was just me standing. There's like a boulder in this field, and I was just standing on top of it, just sort of trying to feel as mm, it's sort of a bit of acting. Like you kind of have to channel, like, okay, what would it feel like if I was disintegrating into leaves, and like trying to visualize, like, okay, how would my body be? Like, what would my expression be?
Oh, I
And
love
sort of
that.
just waving my arms around and just sort of like
Cool.
trying to be in the moment. But that was essentially kind of the portrait side. And then I spent a lot of time adding in all these leaves like individually.
Mm.
just pictures of leaves, and just changing the colors a little bit and changing the shapes a little bit. But it was a lot of different colors of leaves. Um, but it was really like it came out exactly how I wanted it to, and I think a lot of people connected with it as well. Um, the base picture is sort of like this. First one is like this. There we go. So it's just like this grassy field, and then I added in just my own sky stock and my own different stock images to it to build it up. Because I find that in the past I used to kind of just shoot with whatever sort of background that I had, and I would just leave it and I wouldn't change the background or change the location. But now I find that, I have the resources to manipulate the background as much as I want. So why not play around with it and just see what happens?
Yeah, I like what you did with the color correction. And I'm curious to know, do you always use your own stock photos or do you sometimes rely on other people's photos?
Um, I think about 90% of what I do is with my own images.
Mhm,
I find that you have a little bit more control over the lighting and over the angles and perspective. So when I can shoot everything for an image, I feel like it's easier to put together. But there are definitely times when I need to rely on another image. And I think this next image is one that I had to rely on
mhm.
another photo. So this bird photo is not my own. I have a massive fear of birds, so
Oh,
there's
really?
no way that I would have that photo in my own stock library. But I did license it to use for an image, because I knew that I didn't have what I needed. Um, but I say that most of the photos that I create are my own stock with maybe just one element if I can't find it.
Mhm.
I try not to base my images around things I don't own or things that aren't mine. I
Yeah.
try to use my own stuff as much as I can. If there's little things or if there's little elements that I don't have, I'll either try to find it or I'll try to wait until I can find it, or I'll just use someone's that's letting people use it.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and it's easier in terms of lighting and everything. But I love the
Definitely.
concept of this photo, and it's called Conquer. Does that have anything to do with your fear of birds?
It does. It does. It was again for that light bulb project. The theme was conquer, and I immediately I knew I was like, okay, this has to do with my fears. It absolutely has
Mhm.
to. And this image was actually so. This is sort of the working image. It was taken actually at the same time as the leaf photo, on the same day actually. And it was during a time in North America there are these forest fires burning in the United States. And so, usually, in the background of this picture, you can see mountains and trees and the city or the
Oh,
town that I live in. And for about 3 or 4 days, it was just totally orange and totally smoke.
oh,
And it was terrible to go out in. And actually, they told people don't go outside. But for me, I was like, I have to go. I have to go outside because it was so eerie and it was so atmospheric. And I just thought this is such an interesting landscape to create in when it's like this, because it's like all the light was diffused because there's no like strong light, everything was like really washed. So it was like the perfect time to create because there was no light moving, it was just perfect. And so I just went out and I spent a lot of time creating. So this image and this one were taken at the same time on the same day.
mm,
It just maybe 20 feet away from each other.
wow.
So there's like that boulder I was telling you about is about right there. So I just shifted the camera over and shot in that same area. Um, but yeah, I spent a lot of time obviously building it from this to this. Um, and a lot of it was just in adding in the extra sky, so changing the sky,
I'm
and then
very
the lantern.
I'm very fascinated with sky replacement and adding skies. I've never tried it myself. I feel like it's so complicated, but
Well,
you make it look
Photoshop
very easy.
actually made it super easy. I can show you super quickly how to do it. Photoshop made it actually incredibly simple now. There used to be like, I used to do it the long way, and this was actually before the new way came about. So I used to have to like duplicate the background and then try and, manipulate it. But now under edit sky replacement, Photoshop just has it built in now.
Really?
It's super quick, it's super easy, and it's pretty accurate almost all of the time. There's a few times it hasn't been perfect, but you can see that like right away it
Wow.
just does the whole work for you. And they have a built-in library of skies that you can
Ah,
use, or you can add in your own or whatever you want to do. So it just made things so much easier.
oh my
And you
goodness.
get a really good sense of like how different images are going to look, and it's pretty quick. Like it doesn't take a lot of time to scroll through. um, and then you also have like the ability to change the brightness, and you can change the temperature of the sky, and you can change sort of the scale of it if you want to have the clouds bigger or smaller. um, so it definitely makes things a lot easier if you are replacing a sky. i
Wow,
didn't
thank you
i
for
didn't
that.
have that ability when I was creating this image, so I did it the hard way, but it was okay. But then the lantern was mine, and then that one's not. So then, yeah, like I said, the bird um, wasn't mine, but everything else was. The feather is just a brush that I made from a photo of a feather.
Mm,
I really love using brushes. They're sort of like my. I was asked once, like, what is your number one brush or what your number one Photoshop tool? And it is just the brush. I
yeah,
just love the brush tool. It's so versatile.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then just again going in and playing with color tones and changing the curves and the brightness, and eventually you end up with sort of this once you're finished with like all of the adjustments. And I think that's it's sort of, I think for me it's sort of, I mean, this image, I didn't go out to create this image. The only image I actually had in mind when I went out into the smoke was this one, because I wanted to create this specific image and it was in my head, and I knew that I needed an overcast day, and I knew that I needed the grass. But because I was out and I didn't really want to keep going out in the smoke,
Mm,
I was like, I'm just going to shoot a whole bunch of stuff and just see what happens. And I just kind of shot a whole bunch of poses of me just standing in different poses and different directions and looking different ways. And I tend to do that if I'm in a place where I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to use it eventually. And so this was a case of like me not having an idea, but just shooting a whole bunch of images just in case, like almost like stock images just in case. And then a couple weeks later, when it became time to come up with an idea for this conquer theme, and I knew that I wanted to have sort of this giant bird dropping this light into my hand, um, I had the image to use it. And so it's interesting. Like for me, the concept was sort of the fear bringing the light to me. So the fear, me conquering the fear by it bringing light to me, or bringing sort
mhm.
of peace of mind to me. Whereas a lot of people read it as like the fear is actually taking away the light, or like fear is
Oh,
like taking over and stealing the light from me. So it's interesting how different people see the same image and feel different ways about it. But I think
abs-
that's the fun part about creating and sharing it online, is that people will have different reactions, and people will feel different things and see different things even. Sometimes people will notice things that I didn't even notice, or I'll put things into photos and think like, oh, everyone's going to notice this, and nobody does. And I think that that's the fun thing. It's like people might not know and they might not see it, and I think that's kind of the cool part about it.
yeah, I think it's really cool. And what stood out the most to me about this photo was that, and the one titled Autumn, is that you shot them basically in the same place, and I would never have been able to tell. That's cool.
Yeah, I shoot a lot of my images when I'm at home in this field. I've used it over and over and over again, and I feel comfortable there. And I think that we all have places that we like to shoot, whether it's in a city or whether it's in
Mm,
nature or in our homes. And I think people used to kind of advise me to to shoot other places, but when I close my eyes and I think of an idea, the background is usually this place, and I think, well, I like it, and it suits me well, and I know how to create in that space. I know I can anticipate, where the sun is going to be, where the
mm,
trees are. I know what it looks like in all different seasons and all different times of the day, and it feels comfortable to me, and so I use it a lot. It's sort of make my own big canvas, and I like that. I could probably have a whole exhibition of just photos taken in this exact spot, but it's a comfort zone, and it's a place that I feel inspired, and I think we should all have that place and use it as much as we want.
I agree with you. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having a specific place that you like, and it just shows how talented you are because you can make the same location look unique every time. That's a
Mm.
skill, and
I
it's
can show you another one actually that I finished yesterday.
please.
Um, so
Is
it's
this?
in the same spot.
Is it okay?
It's just
Oh,
in a different perspective. So
mm,
it's the same pathway,
okay.
just shot obviously on the ground and with a much closer focal length. But I like to kind of use that same location but change the perspective as much as I can and play around with the different angles and change the perspective that I show people so that maybe people don't know that it was the same place, or maybe people get to see it in a different place. So um, this is just another example of that same location, obviously a different day, um, but the same spot.
Yeah. And is this for your 365 project?
It is. Yeah. It
Yes.
was yesterday's day 13. So I'm getting there. I'm 2 weeks in.
Exciting. And how's that going for you? And by the way, for the viewers, Joel is working on a 365 project this year, which I'm very excited about, and I'd love to know how it's going. Is it
Yeah,
yeah, is it inspiring?
it's my fifth one. At the end of my fourth one, I vowed I would never do it again. And then, sort of last year, when we were kind of in lockdown, I thought, oh, I should have done like a creative challenge this year, would have been a good one to like memorialize. And then, as last year was ending, I thought, I feel a bit disconnected from my work, or I feel like I don't really know what I want to do, or I feel like I need a challenge. I need to push myself. And I was like, what? I haven't thought about this in a while. So why not just see what's going to happen? And I wasn't going to tell anyone that I was going to do it. And then my friend Whitney guessed before I even said that I was going to do it. She just sent me a message and she's like, so are you going to do a 365? And I was like, how did you know? How did you figure it out? And so it's been going well. I mean, it's 2 weeks in. So I haven't missed any days. I've been really relaxed though. Like, my other 365s, the first 3 that I did, I shot everything and edited everything in the same day,
Mm,
and it was hard. It was definitely hard. I was working a full-time job, and it was exhausting, and I wasn't always happy with the work that I was doing because I was stressed and I was, like, pushing myself, whereas this time, I'm just creating every day.
mm,
So I mean, I took the photos for these at wildly different times. I think the background I took in October and the portrait I took this month. So they're different times, but I'm creating something new every day and posting something new every day. So it's sort of a good skill in a way that I'm coming up with an idea every day, but I don't necessarily have to shoot everything
yeah.
that day, because if the weather is not very nice, or if I just don't have the time to shoot something, or if I can't get to where I need to shoot something, I know that I can still create something that I'm really happy with based on the images that I have and the stock that I have. And it's sort of a combination of challenges where I'm relying on what I've already taken in the past to see if I can use it again or use it in a new way. Um, but yeah, it's been going really well, and the feedback has been really good as well. I think people have been really kind, and I mean, I would say 99% of the comments I get are positive, anyways. But the last couple of weeks, people have just been saying, coming on to Facebook or onto Instagram and just seeing your photos every day has just been a highlight, and I look
Mm,
forward to it every day. And it means a lot to me. It means, I really like that connection with people, and if I can be like a positive interaction in someone's day, then that's a nice feeling. And so we'll see how it goes. Come back to me in about 4 months. we'll see we'll see how
okay.
I feel about it, but I feel good about it for right now, and I'm not stressing too much about where it's going, and I'm just taking every day as I can. And kind of towards the end of the day, I'll start to think about the next day, like, okay, what should I do tomorrow, and try to figure out what I'm going to do and what it's going to look like. And I do have a list of ideas and a list of things that I want to shoot, and so I can use those as sort of my backup if nothing comes to mind. But it's been fun just to kind of see where I'm feeling and see what I'm doing. And it's also kind of neat to see how much I've grown in the last few years since the
Mhm.
last time I did it. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to sort of look back through those old 365s that I did and take some of the images from that and recreate them or redo them.
Mhm.
So knowing that I have much better skills than I did
Yeah.
before, or I have the time, or I have the kind of maturity to redo them and do them better, or do them the way I wanted to do them. So it'll be fun to kind of take some of those images that I feel like I could have done better and do them in a better way. So
Yeah. That's really
yeah.
exciting. I'm really glad that this project is going well for you, and I like that you're being smart about it and wise about it and not stressing yourself out by forcing yourself to take photos every day because that is truly stressful. I've tried that. It just, oh,
Yeah, it's hard, and I think there's days when you're just not feeling it, and because
yeah.
so much of what I do are self-portraits, there's just some days where you just don't feel like having your photo taken, or
Yeah.
you just it's raining outside, or it's too cold, or you just don't have the motivation, but you can still create something, you can still make something, and I think that's the great thing. And I used to be so stressed because I used to think like, oh, people are going to think that I'm cheaping out, that that I'm not taking new photos. And then I thought, who cares? Like, I have these hard drives that are full of stuff that, who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares?
Exactly. You're being creative, you're choosing to be creative, and you're also choosing to share that with other people, which is amazing. And I'm happy that people are reacting well to your project. And I'm
Yeah,
not surprised, but it's always very
I'm
nice to
re-
hear
I'm
from you.
really enjoying it, and I every week I invite people on Instagram to suggest a word or an object for me to use the next day, and that's been fun too, just to see like what people would want to see me create with. And some are very generous and they give me words that fit very well with what I do, and
Mhm.
some are very challenging, and I do it totally by random. And so luckily the first two have been fairly simple, but people keep suggesting pineapple, like
What?
when dozens of people have suggested the word pineapple, and
That's funny.
I haven't mentioned it to anyone, so I don't know why pineapple is like the common denominator, but I fear for the day that pineapple shows up. I might have
Oh,
to get super creative with that one, but
I look forward to seeing that photo.
we'll
That's funny
see.
though.
Yeah, it's
Popular
been
word.
kind of funny just to see like the weird ones that people come out with. Like, okay, what
Yeah,
in my work says that pineapple is going to be something,
I
but
know. That
never
wouldn't
say
have ever
never.
come to mind. That's fascinating, but it's cool. It's really nice that you let people sort of get involved in your work in a little way. And it's always nice to hear from people because as a photographer, especially self-portrait photography, it can be pretty isolating, right? Because you're always in your own mind. So it is
Yeah,
nice to hear from people, get some ideas for them. It's great.
yeah, it's kind of fun just to hear what people feel about your work, and then also like allow them to be a part of the process. And I think it makes it much more accessible. And I know for myself, when I see artists or authors or musicians like interacting with people that admire them or look up to them or enjoy their work, it really does help you feel more connected to them, and it makes you feel like they actually do care about what they present and how people feel about it. And I think that I never want people to feel like I'm just plopping things onto a screen and then walking away. I think it's,
Mhm.
like I said at the very beginning, community and connection is so important. And I think that that's just one little way that you can do that, is just by asking people like, okay,
Yeah,
tell me what I can put in my work tomorrow.
that's a great
And
idea.
if it happens to be pineapple, it happens to be pineapple.
Oh, that's really nice. I like that you create an immersive experience for people who follow you. That's very thoughtful of you.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, Joel, thank you for sharing all of your favorite photographs with me and with the viewers. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate that you showed us a magical behind the scenes, and I am more inspired now to get into Photoshop and try that sky replacement.
Yeah, the sky replacement is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really fascinated by that. I had no idea. Such an epiphany.
It's great.
Great. Okay, Joel,
Awesome.
I look forward to seeing the rest of your 365 project, and I will make sure to leave all the links to your work in the description. Check out Joel's work, give him a lot of love, and be inspired by his daily photographs. They're incredible.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation and for wanting to invite me to share.
Oh, no problem. Thank you too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.